Is Ford's 4.24% dividend yield safe for investors? Well, that's the question I'm going to answer in this brief video, so stay tuned and let's get started right away. So, yes, offers a 4.24% dividend yield to stock market investors, to passive income investors, and that's understandably attracting investors that are looking for passive income. But is that dividend safe? Well, one of the measures I use to judge whether or not a dividend is safe is to compare the company's earnings per share with its dividends per share, because dividends are paid out from earnings. Yes, temporarily a company can pay dividends through savings or borrowings, but long term, the only way to sustainably pay dividends is through profits, through earnings. It's kind of like a household, right? Long term, you can only spend what you earn. Sure, temporarily you can sustain a level of spending on credit cards and through savings if your income decreases, but eventually you will max out your credit cards and you will deplete all your savings, and you're going to have to decrease your spending back down to where your earnings are. That's not unlike a business, right? Temporarily they can pay dividends through borrowings and savings, but longer term the only sustainable path to dividends are through profits. And so looking at this metric for Ford, what I have here in the orange is Ford's dividends per share annual, and then Ford's earnings per share over the trailing 12 months. And what you notice is the earnings per share has, for the most part, been above its dividends per share. So this shows that the company is more than earning enough to pay out its dividends. In fact, in let's say this portion here, in 2022, the company delivered earnings per share over the TTM of over $4, but it paid dividends of around 40 cents or so, right? And so several years the company made profits of $2, $3, $4, and it paid dividends in the cents, 40 cents, 50 cents, right? So Ford's dividend policy is not pushing the limits. It's not extreme. It's prudent, in my opinion, in terms of the ratio of dividends per share to earnings per share. Another thing I like to look at is cash flow from operations to sales. And so long as a company is generating decent enough cash flow from operations to sales, that can also sustain dividend payments, because sometimes companies' earnings might be lower, but a company might have a tremendous amount of non-cash expenses, things like depreciation, right? That they're not going to spend cash on. And so looking at cash flow from operations is a nice supplemental metric that helps look at how sustainable the dividend is. And with Ford, it's reasonable, 6.5% most recently, and close to double digits for the last 5 years in terms of cash flow from operations to sales. So no red flags here from Ford. And finally, one of the other things I look at is how much cash do they have, right? So this I look at as a buffer to, if earnings were to decrease short term, can the company sustain the dividends through their savings, right? This is essentially the savings cash balance. And Ford has over $25 billion in cash that it can use if it needs to, if earnings were to decrease temporarily, to kind of sustain dividends while it gets its earnings back on track. So all signs I'm looking at point to Ford's dividend being safe. The one risk I will note is the transition to electric vehicles. Now, so far that's going well for Ford, but that's primarily because the company benefited from this last couple of years when supply chain shortages allowed Ford to sell its cars at higher prices and without incentives or lower incentives, and able to produce the higher priced models. And so the recent macroeconomic environment has worked in Ford's favor. That doesn't necessarily have to be true for the next 3 years. So that's just a note of caution. It's not a red flag or anything just yet, but it's something that could turn into a red flag in the future. So something to keep an eye out on, and certainly something I follow every quarter when I update my viewers on Ford's quarterly progress. But to answer this question, Ford's dividend does appear to be safe for now. But that's all I've got for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.